In 98 years of the Academy Awards, the Oscar for Best Picture has only ever gone to a musical 10 times. Can you name all 10? The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences was founded in 1927, and that was the same year that talking pictures came in and took over the industry.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
The advent of talking pictures meant the arrival of a new genre that hadn't been possible during the silent era: musicals. And at the second ever Academy Awards ceremony, the first talking picture ever to win the Oscar for Best Picture was a musical. It was MGM's first full-length talking picture. From 1929, The Broadway Melody. MGM promoted the film as the first all-talking, all-singing, all-dancing picture, and it became the first musical from the studio that would go on to specialize in movie musicals, MGM. The Broadway Melody featured a score by Arthur Freed and Nacia Herb Brown, and years later, Arthur Freed would go on to become MGM's top producer of movie musicals, including films like Singin' in the Rain, in which Freed recycled music that he had originally written for films like The Broadway Melody.
You were meant for me, and I was meant for you.
The second musical ever to win Best Picture also came from MGM. It was The Great Ziegfeld from 1936. This was a lavish, extravagant musical production about the life of one of the greatest showmen, Florenz Ziegfeld, creator of the Ziegfeld Follies. He was played in the movie by William Powell, and the film also starred Myrna Loy and Louise Reiner, who won the Oscar that year for Best Actress for her performance in this film. 8 years later, another musical took home the Best Picture Oscar, Going My Way from 1944, starring Bing Crosby. Going My Way was a huge hit in 1944, exactly what wartime audiences wanted to see, and it became the highest-grossing film of the year. It was the only musical nominated that year for Best Picture, but it was up against some pretty heavy hitters, including Double Indemnity, Gaslight, and Since You Went Away. Going My Way also established Bing Crosby as a major Hollywood star, and his performance in this film won him the Oscar for Best Actor. The film was so successful that Paramount immediately rushed a sequel into production, which was released 1 year later, called The Bells of St. Mary's. That movie was also nominated for Best Picture, and it also earned Bing Crosby another Best Actor nomination, making him the first actor ever to be nominated twice for playing the same character. Number 4 brings us right back to MGM and producer Arthur Freed. This is the 1951 musical An American in Paris, starring Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron. Arthur Freed specifically designed An American in Paris to showcase the music of George and Ira Gershwin, and in addition to the beautiful Gershwin score, the film is also famous for its stunning finale, a 17-minute ballet sequence which earned Gene Kelly an honorary Oscar. In 1951, most people assumed that the Oscar for Best Picture would go to one of two really powerful dramas, either A Place in the Sun or A Streetcar Named Desire. But instead, it went to a musical, An American in Paris. An American in Paris was also nominated for Best Director, Vincent Minnelli. He didn't win that time around, but he did win 7 years later when he directed another movie musical that won the Oscar for Best Picture. This is number 5 on our list, Gigi, from 1958, again starring Leslie Caron. Gigi featured a beautiful score by Lerner and Loewe, who had just recently scored a major hit on Broadway with their Tony Award-winning musical My Fair Lady. Gigi became another triumph for the pair, and the film went on to win 9 Academy Awards, which set a new record at the Oscars. No movie had ever won 9 competitive Oscars before this. Unfortunately, that record was very short-lived. It lasted only 1 year, and then Ben-Hur came along and won 11 Oscars. While movie musicals reached the height of their popularity with audiences in the 1940s and 50s, in the 60s, they dominated at the Academy Awards. Beginning with the 6th musical ever to win the Oscar for Best Picture, West Side Story from 1961, directed and produced by Robert Wise. So far, all of the musicals on our list were original Hollywood productions, but West Side Story became the first Best Picture winner ever to be adapted from a hit Broadway musical. The original Broadway show premiered in 1957, and the film version came 4 years later and swept the Oscars, winning 10 Oscars, including for Best Picture. And Rita Moreno made history with her win for Best Supporting Actress, becoming the first Latina ever to win an Oscar. Just 3 years later, another adaptation of a hit Broadway musical went on to become the 7th winner for Best Picture, My Fair Lady, again with a score by Lerner and Loewe. For the film version, studio boss Jack Warner agreed to let Rex Harrison reprise his role, but for his leading lady, Eliza Doolittle, he wanted an actress with more box office appeal. Julie Andrews hadn't made a movie up to this point, so instead Warner chose Audrey Hepburn. It was a bitter disappointment for Julie Andrews, but the same year she did get to make her film debut in Mary Poppins. And when the Oscars rolled around, My Fair Lady won the Best Picture Academy Award, Rex Harrison won for Best Actor, and Julie Andrews won for Best Actress for Mary Poppins. Audrey Hepburn was not nominated.
And deep love to, well, two fair ladies, I think.
Yes, but only.
Julie Andrews is also the star of our next musical from 1965. The biggest hit of the entire year and the Best Picture winner was The Sound of Music. Once again, the movie was directed and produced by the man who had directed and produced West Side Story, Robert Wise. Wise took home 2 Oscars for West Side Story for Best Picture and Best Director, and again he repeated the triumph with 2 Oscar wins for The Sound of Music, again for Best Picture and Best Director. And we close out the 60s with yet another Best Picture musical winner, Oliver from 1968. This was another adaptation of a hit stage musical with a score by Lionel Bart, which had premiered on the London stage in 1960 and then on Broadway in 1963. Oliver took home 6 Oscars at the 41st Academy Awards, including an honorary award for choreographer Ona White. This was one of the rare times that the Academy recognized choreography with an honorary Oscar. Oliver also had some tough competition in the Best Picture category that year, including The Lion in Winter, which starred Katharine Hepburn, and another musical, Funny Girl, starring Barbra Streisand. Hepburn and Streisand tied for the Best Actress Oscar that year. Now we have to fast forward quite some time to get to the 10th and final Best Picture musical winner. Along the way, there were several movie musicals that were nominated for Best Picture, including Cabaret, Hello Dolly, Fiddler on the Roof, Moulin Rouge. But it wasn't until 2003 that another musical would win the Oscar for Best Picture. That movie was Chicago, another adaptation of a hit Broadway show. With a score by John Kander and Fred Ebb, Chicago became a hit on Broadway when it first premiered in 1975, and the revival, which premiered in 1996, is still running today. The 2002 film version won 6 Oscars, including for Catherine Zeta-Jones as Best Supporting Actress. And this was once again the case where a movie musical beat some heavy dramas, including The Hours and Gangs of New York. Be sure to watch the 79th Tony Awards coming up this Sunday, June 7th, and let me know in the comments what are some of your favorite movie musicals.